Okay, well, welcome to the podcast. And I'm actually quite excited to have Suyash Keshari. Keshari?
Keshari. It's okay.
Excellent.
No problem.
I'll have a go. Yeah, as usual, I'm just demonstrating my linguistic capabilities here on the podcast.
All good. It is a tricky one.
Yeah, so Suyash has quite an amazing background, and what I'm going to do, and I don't normally do this, is actually attach his bio to a link in the podcast description. So I thought, first of all, Suyash, before we get into it, maybe you could just talk us through what you've been doing. And I have a bit of a following in India. And so you guys, if you're listening, you might well be familiar with Suyash. So over to you, Suyash. Maybe if you could introduce yourself to the rest of the listeners, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely, Graham. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. It's great to connect with you, a like-minded individual. And I would love to go on a photography expedition together with you. That would be epic, I think.
Absolutely.
And imagine recording part 2 of this session in the wild instead.
That would be pretty amazing. I'm up for that.
Yeah, 100%. A little background about myself. I've been a wildlife presenter, filmmaker, and conservationist based out of central India. And I've worked in wildlife for the good part of the last 7 years. And been into wildlife since I was 4 years old. So, almost 2.5 decades of my life, I've been closely connected with wildlife because I'm born and brought up in central India, very close to the tiger reserves.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And I own a safari company by the name of Ameliya Safaris. And we specialize in high-end privately guided experiences and photographic experiences across India and 9 countries in Africa. And we have a conservation wing attached to it where we build waterholes for wildlife. We equip anti-poaching efforts, fund education programs, and also our newest program, which is rescuing and rehabilitating animals that are in human conflict situations. And for 2025, our target is 500 animals, and we're close to about 100 animals, or have just about crossed 100 animals today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. I mean, we're only really just getting started, or it feels like
yes.
this year.
Sure, 100%.
That's brilliant. One of the questions I had was what inspired you? And you said you've been interested for a very long time. What actually inspired you to not only get more involved with animals, but also what inspired you to go down the path you've taken with your career, I suppose, but your life? It's not so much a career thing, I think, doing what we do. It's passion.
Yeah, absolutely. Graham, it started when I was quite young. It started when I was growing up in central India, and my grandfather played a pivotal role, and so did my mother. And 2 different ways they did that. Number one, my grandfather used to watch a lot of shows on National Geographic, Animal Planet, Discovery, and he introduced them to me. So at a very young age, I was watching hyenas devouring a live animal instead of watching Tom catching Jerry. And my early childhood memories of TV are all about tigers, lions, and shows like that. And he used to take me on his shoulders to the local zoo in East India, in a city called Kolkata. And it used to be the biggest zoo in India. And at that point, he used to tell me that, okay, do you like these animals? And I said, I love them. And there was one fine day that he responded saying that, this tigers that you're seeing. And at this point, I'm looking at the tigers. I'm a very young guy, and the tigers snarled at me. So, of course, I jumped up in excitement and got excited. But when my grandfather told me that, son, these are not the same animals you see in the wild or on TV shows. They're stuck in a 4x4 cage for the rest of their lives. So I think that broke my heart at a very early age and set me on a path to finding more about wildlife, learning more about wildlife, and connecting with them in their habitat. And my mother also played a very pivotal role, but not for wildlife, but more for nature in general. She loves gardening. She is in love with her plants and the trees that are in the house or surrounding the house. So much so that she's one of the tree huggers. She talks to them, she hugs them, and she takes care of them from the heart. And it's quite sad to see that all the flowers go away during peak winters or peak
Mm.
summers, and the entire tree or entire plant looks completely dead. So it's sad to see her put in so much effort and then they're dead. But then she's eagerly waiting for the flowers to come back on because that's her source of happiness. So I think
Yeah.
somewhere along the lines, I got that from her. The
Yeah.
love for nature, the love for trees, and the love for animals was because of my grandfather's story. And then living in that ecosystem in central India, where tiger reserves are just 3 hours drive, 4 hours drive, I started going on safaris. I started asking my father to take me on safaris, and he would either take himself or send someone with me, or if his colleagues were going, I would go with them. So at a very young, early age, I had that access to wildlife and nature. And that really, really set me on a path to doing what I do. I used to watch David Attenborough, Steve Irwin, Steve Baxter, and I wanted to emulate those guys. Of course, fast forward 20 years, that's what I was able to do.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's an amazing place. So we were talking earlier about Kana. So were you close to Kana? Were you in Madhya Pradesh or?
Yes, exactly. I'm born in Madhya Pradesh, and both Kana and Bandhavgarh are about 4 hours from where I'm born.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, amazing. So those people listening gets the opportunity to go grab it because it's just amazing, and certainly seeing tigers in the wild for the first time. Particularly, we were in a very small. It's kind of like a Suzuki, but I think it's an Indian rebrand of it. But there's no protection on the sides. I mean, you're just open. So when a tiger walks past, and you're just there, that's it gets your attention.
Correct, but they would never do anything.
No.
When tigers or big cats see vehicles, they see them as independent beings. You see, you and I have the concept of machinery. Wild animals do not have the concept of machinery. They see a big thing, and then they see inside that there are moving heads, multiple moving heads. Probably there are 5 humans or 1 human sitting on it. And they just realize, look, this is not what I want to mess with. It's much bigger than me. It's much louder than me. There are videos, of course, that a tiger or a lion would charge up to the vehicle, but that's just to show that, okay, don't come close or do anything to me.
Yeah, yeah. And I know, I don't know if you've experienced this, but where I was staying, so I stayed in a little hotel. It was about 500 meters from Mukhi Gate. And the guides there, the guides who were in the restaurant at the hotel, they were telling us how they'd be on their bicycles going home sometimes. There'd be a tiger standing there, so they just wait.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, tigers are extremely tolerant, I mean, it's sad that only in the media do you see about all the tiger attacks, but do you hear about any of the times it did not attack? Hardly. And 99.9% of the time it does not. It's at 0.01, and that's also because it was either disturbed by people walking, or it was chased off its meal, or it came into a human conflict situation.
Yeah, in fact, this wasn't what I was planning to talk about, but just to relay, I guess, something that I thought was amazing was the people who work in that reserve. So the people in the hotels, the guides, drivers, all that, they sort of regard the tigers there as their tigers. And so they look out for them. So I think poaching, I don't know what the level of poaching is there. It's pretty low, I believe. And also the tiger numbers are recovering in Kana. I think a big part of it is that people see the tigers as contributing to that community in a way, that people and tigers living together. And that's a major turnaround. I think a major factor in why Kana is doing well in terms of conservation and bringing the tiger numbers back.
Correct.
Because
absolutely.
Yeah, and one of the horrendous things, I this is going back a few years ago now. I was looking at running a trip from Sydney, but I think it's something like it's either 4,000 or 6,000 tigers estimated being in the wild. And to put that into context, you could get a regular football stadium and put all the tigers in there, and it'd only be half full. The So, it's, I think when you
Yeah,
put,
that's crazy to think about that.
it's horrifying, you know. Anyway, so I want to talk more about the safaris that you run, because again, something I'm really big on, and if anybody's listened to me talk about going on a trip, make sure it's an eco safari or volunteering. And the reason I say that is that there are some very bad practices go on in some areas. So I've seen, we were just talking about this, seen some driver, you'll find an animal, maybe a lion, just trying to get a kip in the middle of the day, and there might be a dozen vehicles around, and then someone will decide to drive at it to try and provoke a reaction, and that's pretty appalling. So I'm very against that. So you're very much on the eco tourism, very conservation. So tell us a little bit about that and how you're operating, and maybe how people can get involved.
Absolutely. So we provide safari experiences across India and Africa. India is our home country. We have our own team here. We have private guides. Every single trip of ours is led by a private guide who's going to be your host, who's going to be your naturalist, who's going to be your interpreter of experiences and also curator of experiences. We go on safaris every day, morning or evening, sometimes full day safaris, depending on what kind of a person we have as a guest. For example, someone like yourself would like to spend all 12 hours in the jungle, waiting for the action to unfold and photograph it. And we're happy to do that. But some others would like to go 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the evening. So we really tailor it to the guest's needs. And what is important is that, unfortunately in India, none of the reserves are private, which means they're open to the public, but not fully open to the public. They're controlled by the government. So at times, there can be crowded situations. We try our best that if there's a road and a fork in the road and everyone goes right, we try going left. And in terms of situations where there's crowd and there's tigers, you also have to remember that tigers are very solitary animals. So, no off-roading is permitted in India. And if a tiger feels disturbed, it's just going to go deeper into the jungle because, again, the entire jungle is not navigable by road systems. So we try maintaining a distance with the tigers, with any animals, and letting the animals approach us. Because that's when you get the best photographs. If a tiger approaches you, it's going to come very close and it's going to be curious of the vehicle. Versus if you drive towards the tiger, it's going to run away.
Yeah.
So those are the things we do. But beyond safari, safari is just one mode of observing wildlife. Beyond safari, we also do walking safaris, where you track different animals on foot or get closer to the ground and observe something that you missed during a safari. The insects, the birds, the amazing flora, facts about the trees. There's a funnel web spider in India, which is very cool, which actually makes funnel kind of webs. There's so much. And then observing a track, there's a pug mark, which is basically a paw impression of a tiger or any animal. Maybe it's a monkey or a deer. Then studying that, studying the droppings of animals. And then if you go beyond safaris, just beyond walking and driving, then you also have community interactions, which play a very, very vital role in every single safari experience for us, because people come from all over India and the world, and they think that, okay, places like Kanha or Bandhavgarh National Park are kind of Shangri-Las. They're not. They're completely away from human habitation. That's not true. Increasingly, in especially modern India, every single national park is either surrounded by human habitation or there's human habitation inside the national park that has existed for millennia, generations and generations. You can't just remove them easily, or it's again, you can't remove them or think of just removing them, because it's also their livelihood, their lives. So what we do is we always take guests to meet these local communities, how they live, what challenges do they face, and then weigh the conservation, how they're protecting the ecosystems, what you can do. So I think having this holistic experience
Mm.
where you have the animal side of the story, but also the human side of the story, really educates people, really makes people understand, empathize with the situation around, but also empowers them and inspires them to play a positive role in conservation efforts.
Absolutely. I think that's really important. I think it's the way forward, because the reality is people and animals are living together. That's not going to change unless something major happens. So you have to move forward by learning to live together. And another group that we were just chatting about earlier is ERA in Namibia. And one of the things they do is they actually teach local people how to live with the elephants. And I hadn't actually understood this until I went there in 2019. A lot of the people regard the elephants as almost with a superstitious fear, because elephants can travel a long distance overnight and they can suddenly pop up. And if you startle an elephant, because they've got very bad eyesight, they're going to defend themselves. So that education, I think, is really important if you live in a situation where there is wildlife about and you want to preserve that. So that's and like I said, that was one of the things I really loved about Kana, that people love the tigers. They can see how they work together and they're tigers. I love the idea of tracking on foot as well, because I've done a little bit of that in Zimbabwe, elephants and rhino. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and one of the amazing things, if you've never been tracking on foot, or even if you've been to somewhere like India or Africa, is actually understanding spoor is the term they use in Africa.
Correct.
Which is footprints, dung, damage to vegetation, whatever, anything that an animal leaves behind to show that it's there. And if you understand the language, you there have the story laid out in front of you of what's been going on for a few hours, maybe longer. But that is one of the great things. If you've got a guide with you who can explain what's going on, suddenly it's not just a track with maybe this odd footprint in it, but the whole place comes alive. What's been going on over the last few hours. And that's also something that gives me a buzz. And I don't know if you find that with people when you take them out, if they, it's like the penny drops suddenly.
Absolutely. I think, I always think of tracking. Whenever I'm tracking, whether it's on foot or from a vehicle, I think of myself as an investigator, someone trying to solve a mystery, like a Sherlock Holmes almost.
Yeah,
because you have to be, you have to be astute. You have to really be able to see the difference between centimeters, between milliseconds, between missing a sign and observing a sign correctly. There's a huge difference, and that's what I love doing. It really, really excites me. Almost excites me more than seeing the animal itself.
Yeah, well, it's a challenge, isn't it? It is reading that and working out what's been going on. And a really odd thing I noticed when I was doing this in Africa, it's kind of absurd and ridiculous. But as you're finding dung, obviously as you get nearer the animal, it actually gets warmer and wetter. But what I also noticed was that the dung beetles on the dung were different species, or the different shapes anyway. And it was really quite bizarre. It's like a different party with different people going along.
Correct.
So for people who are interested in maybe getting involved, where are so you mentioned India as being your, I guess, the home sort of venue for you, but where do you go in Africa?
Yeah, we operate in 9 countries in Africa. So starting with Eastern Africa, you have Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania as our main base in East Africa. And then Southern Africa, we work with all Southern African countries, starting from South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Botswana.
Wow.
Brilliant. Yeah. We love Africa. I mean, I think Africa is what, especially some parts of Africa like Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Zambia, they remind us of what our planet used to be maybe 1,000 years ago or even before. And it's been preserved since then. I mean, when you go to, like, I know you've said you've gone to Namibia and Zimbabwe, you'd be standing somewhere in Zimbabwe and knowing that, you know what, a couple thousand years ago, this land was exactly the same.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and Botswana as well. And I stayed in the town of Victoria Falls. And the odd thing about Victoria Falls, the town, is it's actually on the migration path that animals have been using for millennia.
Yeah.
So at certain times of year, you'll see elephants wandering up the high street. There's a standard warning about when you go to the supermarket in downtown. We called it Vic Vegas because it was the tourist part. It's all very smart. But yeah, you had to make sure that your shopping was in a backpack or something and all closed up, because otherwise the baboons would dive in and grab whatever you just. So it's just a totally different place to be, where you walk along the street and a bunch of baboons walking the other way. It's so bizarre.
I mean, a baboon stole my wife's coffee when we were at Victoria Falls. And, we were just like, we'd been tired, been doing safaris for 15 days. So, of course, in the morning, you and I have a coffee. And we picked up a coffee from near the ticket counter. Didn't realize how, the baboons were around, but nobody warned us that they're really going to, like, take it from you. And she's having coffee, and the baboon just comes nonchalant, no aggression, nothing. She's holding the coffee, just grabs, goes. What do you do?
My thought when I first saw it was, this is like Planet of the Apes. But we're all living together. It was so odd, but it's just normal there. Correct. So, for different experiences, that's
absolutely.
Definitely great places to go. So, what would be high points for you? It's probably an unfair question, but high points in terms of, I don't know, either working with animals, experiencing animals, or what you've been able to provide for people who maybe have never seen animals in the wild before. What are the kind of experiences that you just look back on and think, that was a really good day?
Yeah, Graham, the best thing about being in the wild is every day is new, every day is exciting, every day can be great, and every day can also be a little frustrating because you want to see something and you're not able to see something, or you're not able to get that shot. But every day is different. And I think what really leaves me fulfilled, makes me happy, and even during, but at a hindsight more so makes me happy, is that I've been very, very tremendously gifted to have followed the lives of tigers from young, like as cubs, as this small, all the way to adulthood, knowing them from the time that they were only about 50 pounds or 30 pounds even, all the way to when there are 500, 600 pounds in weight. To be able to follow the life of a tiger and then learn about that tiger, who the mother is, who the father is, what the tiger's personality is, who are its siblings, what does it prefer eating, what does it prefer, where does it prefer to drink water, how does it prefer to drink water, does it like going into the water or just staying outside, knowing about the little gimmicks that the tiger does, looking about the personality. And then, of course, I'm able to track different tigers, know about the lifestyles of different tigers, life cycles of different tigers. But so that's a level of fulfillment. But what transcends that level of fulfillment is to then, you love that tiger, of course. But then the transcendence comes when you get someone else to fall in love with that tiger. You know, if you are on my safari and then I'm telling you, okay, this is a tigress, her name is Solo, and I followed her for 7 years. This is who she is, etc., etc. And I see you falling in love with her. And then that is like, oh my God, that's a new level of euphoria for me. I just love it.
That's amazing. One of the things I loved about visiting Kana, so again, if you don't know, the patterns on the faces of the animals are unique. So, and certainly what they had at Kana was a sheet, ID sheet. So once an animal, I think they have to reach maturity, or so then they're given a name. Before that, they're given a number, but they don't always survive. Or that's, I think, how they do it in Kana. So, you can take pictures, look at the sheet and say, oh, I know who that is. And then if you've got that background, suddenly it's like shooting a person, it's like shooting a friend almost. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so I've seen over 200 different tigers in my life
Wow.
and closely follow the lives of about 138.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what advice do you have for anybody who's thinking of doing a trip, or wanting to experience animals in the wild? What would be broad advice, really, not just specifically about photography or anything like that, but what do you think they need to keep in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, I think, Graham, people need to realize that it's a very specialized kind of travel. And a specialized travel requires a specialist to be involved.
Mm,
If I think a lot of people go online and look for general experiences, and then they either end up with someone who is not experienced in it and just selling it to make money, or they end up with something that is not eco-conscious, that is not eco-friendly, that is again a mass product.
yeah.
Or last thing, people try doing everything themselves. And then they go online and they search online and there are like 1,000 different options. And then they just are tired. Okay, they don't know what to do.
Mm,
And then they stop and then they just don't go on a safari. So I think get a specialist involved. People who have been doing this for a large part of their life, look them up and then get them involved, whether it's us or me or my company or anybody else, but get a specialist involved.
yeah.
Second, I think people need to plan way ahead of time, because it's not like going to some place in Europe where you're going to have like 50 or 100 different hotel options, and each hotel will have like 500 rooms or 300 rooms. In a place like Central India or Botswana or anywhere, you're going to have a few hotels and lodges, and those few hotels will and lodges will have few rooms. They're not mass uh, hotels. Maximum they'll have like 20, 25 rooms, but usually they'll have between 10 and 15. So, and they tend to get sold out very fast. So planning in advance is very important.
Mm,
And I think people should keep an open mind as to what they're going to experience. I think a lot of people just watch documentaries and then hope that their first safari, they're going to see a lion bringing down a buffalo. After that, they're going to see a cheetah mother nursing her cubs. And after that, they're going to see a crocodile eating a wildebeest,
yeah.
all in one safari.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You gotta
Exactly.
you gotta give it time. You gotta give it patience. Let your guide handle it and be open. What do you mean? What do I mean being open? Not like open to patience alone, but be open to falling in love with just a pure, simple sunrise and sunset.
Mm,
A simple rustling of leaves, or just an elephant ambiently eating, or just breathing fresh air away from your
mm.
phone, away from everything. Just focus on the surroundings. So I think these are three major points that I would give to people before planning a experience which is wildlife related.
Absolutely. And I think your point about managing expectations, because my experience in Kana, we got really lucky, but I think so we were going out in the morning, then the afternoon, except for Wednesday when everything's closed in the afternoon to give
Correct.
animals and everything a break. But I think it was 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 of those little trips we actually saw tigers, which I think was actually pretty good going.
Yeah,
A
it's
few of them were
good.
quite close. But that is the reality. And I did a lot of photography of humpback whales when I was living in Sydney. And again, people expect you to go out in the boat, humpbacks breaching all over the place. And again, that was about maybe 1 in 3 trips you might get a breach. Sometimes you wouldn't see
Correct.
anything, but that's just reality of wildlife photography.
Correct.
Yeah, and another point actually that I'll mention to people, and I mention it when I talk about planning, is certainly was the case in Kana, and I've had this in other reserves where you have to show ID, and when people
Yeah.
book passes for you, you need to give them ahead of time a copy of the ID. So normally that's passport page. But the important thing to remember is that if you're doing this a few months ahead and then you change your passport, you turn up with a different document. That's not what they're
Yeah.
looking for. They want the original one. Now, I don't know what they do if it's something different, but I'm assuming that makes it
Yeah.
at least awkward
No,
for you
well,
trying to organise.
yeah, I think so. you're right. A couple of years ago, that was the case, but things have changed now. It's more
Okay.
systematic. It's now digitized. So everything, if it's Graham Elliott from, say, from France, and they see their passport, it's okay. If it
Okay.
matches your face, that's fine. Face and name, that's fine. No problem. But yeah, again, that's why working with an expert is important because, as I said, I work in 10 countries for 250 destinations, and every single destination, there's a caveat attached to it.
Yeah.
You have to do this or you have to do that. And that's why we are going to be able to tell you what to do, what not to do. And, all people need to do then is just enjoy the experience and nothing else.
Absolutely. And I was also thinking about what you were saying about, where people are going. So I remember being in Ghana, we were allocated different zones within the park on each trip, but we would always try and get there first so that we could just get in the park and go. And not get behind that really big bus. There's some of those really big buses they were using that have, I guess, local people, but yeah.
I mean, it's a cheaper way to do stuff, but they only allow 2 buses in the entire reserve.
Yeah. So, and the thing about the guides, because obviously the guides are talking to one another about where the tigers have been seen. So they've got an idea if it's in the area you've been allocated. But again, thinking about experts, one of the things our drive would do and our guide would do is just stop every now and again and listen. Because certainly with tigers, one of the things you're listening for is not the tiger, but the alarm call from things that are worried they're going to get eaten by a tiger. So if you hear an alarm call, then you've got kind of the support team is unknowingly working for you.
100%, Graham. You're a wildlife expert now. I
wouldn't say that, but I just like to. But these are subtle things about it, and I think this is part of the joy of doing this. That you suddenly learn a lot more.
Correct. And once you hear the alarm call, that's when the patience begins. Whether the tiger is going to come out in 10 minutes or 2 hours, you have to be patient. And at that time, what do? You just sit quietly, or you just enjoy the birds, the sounds, and just the sounds of the wild, and it feels great.
Yeah. Actually, when I was there, a tiger did make a kill while we were waiting, but we didn't actually see it because it was in the bush. But it did come out. We saw the other. I think it was Chito. It was after, and we saw them all running. Others running away, and then he came out into a clearing with this young one he'd managed to catch. So, that was amazing and extreme. Like I said, we were really lucky. Yeah, I had a lucky trip. So, is there anything else that, that you'd like to share? Really, I mean, about your life or your experiences that you'd like to share with anybody listening who might have been on safari before, or maybe is thinking about it for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I'll share is one of my favorite experiences in life with tigers, since we're talking so much about them. And that is, and I actually took the name of that tigress, and that tigress name is Solo. So, I knew Solo since she was just about 4.5 months old. And I saw her for the first time back in 2012. And she was one of the first cubs I saw. Her mother was Rajbera female, and I knew her also. And Solo had 3 other siblings, 2 females and 1 male. And we named her Solo because as the cubs were growing up, we found Solo always alone, away from the family. And even at a very young age, she was chasing different animals, even at 6-7 months of age. And all the cubs would stay together, but Solo would go off on her own. And so we named her the Solo female among a litter of 4.
Yeah.
She's very independent. And then there came a time that she pushed her mother out of her territory. She took over her mother's territory. She mated with a male. It was successful, gave cubs. But unfortunately, another male found the cubs and killed the cubs.
Yeah.
So male tigers who do not father the cubs will kill the cubs so that the female comes back into estrus and then mates with the male. It's the survival of the fittest. Every male wants his gene to be passed.
Yeah.
And then the second litter of cubs were 5 cubs, and Solo decided that, look, I have to protect them at all costs. Unfortunately, one of them was born weak and died 2 weeks later, but the rest four grew up fine. But in her area, other tigers started coming in because India's tiger population is increasing, but the area is not enough. So
Yeah.
some tiger reserves are overcrowded. We have 55 tiger reserves in the country. Top 15 tiger reserves are overcrowded, but the uh, remaining tiger reserves do not have enough tigers. So we
Yeah.
need to move tigers from surplus areas to deficit areas.
Yeah.
But of course, the government is working towards it. It's not easy. It's very challenging. These tiger reserves are very far away from each other, remote. There's a lot of political problems also involved. But coming to the story again, so a lot of different tigers started coming to her territory, pushing into her territory because space is limited. And Solo had fights with a few different tigers. At one point, one of the males ripped Solo's chest open completely. But throughout this, she was still able to fend for her cubs. And while Solo was a little weak now, her cubs were very strong, very bold, and big. And in COVID, Solo went missing. Around 2020, Solo went missing, and the cubs went missing. When the parks reopened after the monsoon season, we tried tracking her, and we found her outside of the national park, near a human habitation, but still in the forest. She was drinking from the same water hole people were washing their clothes in or going in to bathe in, and she was killing cattle. And on October 17th, 2020, the cubs were about just under 2 years old. We found very sad news that Solo was poisoned. She had killed the cattle, and then, of course, revenge killing is what we call them. The cattle owner poisoned the carcass, and then Solo and the cubs ate the carcass and died, which was probably the most terrible experience I've had in my life, a terrible time I've had in my life, and most terrible news I could have heard that time. And I was inconsolable. I've tracked this female for so long. I know her inside out, and I'm talking about conservation, about tigers, and at the same time, just in front of me, we lost a female with 4 cubs, and that's when we had to reconcile that we have to play a bigger active role in conservation efforts. So we started doing education programs, anti-poaching patrols, building water holes for wildlife so that, wildlife in the areas with human population don't have to drink from the same water hole as humans. And really moved towards more active participation in conservation. And I think that tiger has taught me a lot, and I miss her till this day. I wish I could, pick up the computer and show you, but the picture is right in front of me here. Beautiful tiger, Solo.
That's. I kind of begin to understand what it would have meant to go through that, and it also kind of underlines what we were talking about really at the beginning about people and living with wildlife in a way that they get on, and that's so important. And it makes such a big difference when that education takes place. So hopefully Solo's life goes towards contributing to that, so that that sort of thing doesn't happen in the future, or at least absolutely minimized.
Correct.
I actually got the chance to speak to a couple of ex-poachers when I was in Uganda, and it was very interesting hearing their stories and why they'd resorted to that, because I think your situation is slightly different. I know when people have their livestock killed, and that's a fairly standard approach, but there needs to be other ways to handling it. I did have one question about the relocation. So I did get to talk to somebody in Zimbabwe, Victoria Falls, about relocating elephants, because he'd been involved in that for quite a while, and they had the same problem. You get an overpopulation of elephants, and elephants can be very destructive. and put them in a
Correct.
place where there aren't any. But what they found was that the way the elephant's society, if you like, is made up with a matriarch and then all the females and the sub-adult males. But the matriarch's role is to know where they can find water, where they can get what they need to eat, regardless of what's going on. And when they relocated a group, suddenly the knowledge that the matriarch had was completely irrelevant because they didn't know that area. And they'd actually witnessed, on at least one occasion, the matriarch went mad because she's trying to look after the group, but she can't look after them because she just doesn't know where she is. And I don't know quite if tigers operate in exactly the same way, if they rely on that knowledge of where they've grown up. So it's a very detailed knowledge of the area, or how quickly can they adapt? Do you have any feel for that?
Yeah, I think what point you brought up, Graham, is very, very vital. You see, in terms of relocation, it's actually humans playing God.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, even though I desist the idea that humans are playing God, we have to do it. With elephants, they are incredibly social animals, and they really rely on their bonding and knowledge passed on from generations. With elephants, of course, it would be much more difficult when you remove a herd from its ecosystem and go to another ecosystem, because they rely on so many different food sources, water sources. They require an astounding 250 kilograms of food every single day.
Yeah.
And it's challenging. They're very emotional animals. But with tigers, because they're not communal animals, they fare a little easier. Because then when a tiger is relocated to an area, again, it will be completely disoriented because it does not know the area, does not know where the food will be, water will be. So it will still have a shock, but it'll still fare a little better than an elephant because it's a smaller individual. It's a predator, and it does not require 250 kilograms of food every day. It requires about one animal per week. And if there's enough food, if there's enough water, and there's enough space, the tiger will survive because tigers are highly adaptable. That being said, Graham, I think people forget that animals are also individuals like you and I. Now someone like me, I'm very flexible with my environment. You take me and put me in any country, I'll make friends, I'll enjoy the food. But maybe if you take one of my friends who is completely a home person, doesn't like interacting with people, and you put them in, let's say, Paris, and he doesn't know any French, and he doesn't like French food, then he's gonna go into that space where he's gonna get depressed. And that depression could lead to a lot of anxiety, and it could lead to very decline in health as well. So similar with elephants and tigers and every single animal, there are individuals that can cope better. There are individuals that won't cope better. Is there a way for us to know that? Unfortunately not. And that is the problem in humans playing God. And it's, again, something like a necessary evil at this point of time. It's that catch 2020, right? Like, should we do it? There are pros, there are cons.
Yeah, because if you keep them in the area, it will be overcrowded, if you said, and then males will kill cubs so that they can. You have all of that going on. Yeah, now that's it's a tricky one because on the face of it, it looks like a very simple thing to do, but in fact, there's a lot more to it. And I think it's important people understand that the obvious solution isn't always quite as good a solution as you might think, but it might be the only workable one that's available.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay, well, look, Suyash, I really enjoyed our conversation there. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we just wind things up?
No, thank you so much for hosting, Graham. I would love to host you on a safari, and any of your listeners on a safari as well. And if anyone listening, they can follow me on Instagram. I'd love to connect with them and stay in touch.
Yeah, I'll get the links and I'll put them in the description so that people can go directly to your Instagram, and I'll put your bio on there as well. And the website for the tours too,
Correct.
so that people can jump on and hopefully have an amazing experience with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for hosting me, Graham. Take care.
My pleasure. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we can catch up in person. Okay.
Looking forward.
Thanks. Bye now.
Oh, and just one more thing before you go. Just remember to drop any comments that you have or questions, and I'll get back to them in a future podcast. And remember that there's a new podcast every Friday. So if you've enjoyed this one, please remember to like and subscribe and join me on my mailing list, and you'll get a heads up about the latest podcast. So bye for now.